All right, here we go. Let's try this out. Welcome to Tilted Perceptions Podcast, starring me, Jimmy B. I'm going to call this episode 1.5. I think I got all my sound issues figured out. I messed around with the treble, the mid, and the bass, maneuvered my microphone around so it's right up in my face. So I think moving forward, we're going to have some really good podcasts where you'll actually be able to hear me. I replayed episode one and I was definitely cutting in and out on some parts. Like I said, it was going to be a little bit of a journey to try to get this thing figured out. But the best way to get it figured out is to actually do it and see where your problems are and try to learn from them and continue to get better as we move forward. So, just a quick recap of the first episode is I basically just let you guys know who I am a little bit and talked about my childhood traumas and my struggle with alcoholism and addiction and being strung out on meth and hearing voices and whatnot. And I kind of ended it when I got to the end of my story and the beginning of my recovery. I didn't really get too much into my life after recovery. I kind of touched on a few things in my childhood and some major events that kind of, you know, catapulted me into the realms of alcoholism and addiction. And once I got to that spot, I just, my disease progressed until it almost killed me, and I ended up, finally reaching out for help and asking for help. So I'm not sure what I want to do here, but I will definitely let me tell you a little bit more about me. So after I got sober, my life started to change, obviously, um, and the trajectory of my life ever since I've been sober has been up and good. I say that because life has its ups and downs. It's not all always well and wonderful, right? Life still happens, but what I learned that regardless, life is going to happen no matter what, and I don't need to drink and use over it, right? So when I put the booze down and the meth down and everything else down, my mind cleared up. I started to get my life back in order. I got a job. I started making money, right? I finally eventually moved out from my mom's house. I got my own place. I got my job in the union back. Things started falling in place, and life took on new meaning. I met my ex-wife, who had a 2-year-old daughter at the time, which um, Tori, that's my daughter. I don't look at her any different. I've been her dad since she was 2, and I'm so grateful for her. And then obviously I have Savannah as well. I have 2 daughters, now 16 and 11. Most recently, my oldest daughter, she's about ready to take her test to get her license. So she's going to be driving probably next week, which is crazy. It also means that I'm getting older. Um, but yeah, so I was married. I've been divorced. Um, I've been in a few relationships. I've dated. I'm currently single. Maybe I'll touch on that stuff more in detail another time. But I do have my daughters half the time, and I love being a dad. I absolutely love it more than anything. It's one of my favorite things that I get to do in this world is be a father to them. And I think the coolest thing about that for me, honestly, is that if you remember my story from episode one, is that I didn't have a dad. He was never around, right? And that was a huge void in my life. So, kind of what happened for me is as a result of getting and being sober, I get to turn around and be the father to my two girls that I never had and always wanted. And I think that's really awesome. And I think that's really cool. And I get to choose how that looks. And to me, just it's a huge deal just showing up for them and being present in their lives. I can't tell you how many spiritual experiences I have doing that. I have a lot of them. It just fills my heart with so much joy just to be able to be with them and provide for them and just be a dad that they can depend on, something that I was lacking, But I also have no regrets, everything that happened in my life um, helped mold me into the man that I am today. Everything that I went through played a part in making me who I am. So, all that stuff I talked about in the last episode, all the void of not having a father, feeling uncomfortable in my own skin, sexual stuff, seeing my mom be abused, different things like that, being picked on and bullied, witnessing a murder, seeing those things. Those are all things that came to the surface when I got sober. Okay, and I didn't know how to deal with them. I didn't know how to talk about my feelings. I didn't know how to deal with them. And part of the work that I did on myself was taking inventory of myself. And that was huge. That played a huge role in me getting over some of this stuff. I like to talk about it nowadays. Like, if I never identify what my problems are, how would I know what I need to fix? I wouldn't, right? I would just continue to go on with my life and stuff everything and not talk about it and continue to be resentful and dishonest and just have all that negativity inside of me. And I didn't realize how much power it had over me until I was able to do some work around it and release it, and so it's important, and there's a saying that we're only as sick as our secrets, and that's so true. I don't know if there's a truer quote out there, because the stuff that we hold on to, if we don't talk about it, it just feeds all the negativity inside us, the internal stuff, the resentments, the depression, the self pity, the guilt, the shame, the remorse, and it's like a evil, just cancer that's inside of us that absolutely eclipses any part of the sunlight of the spirit. I like to talk about this too. I feel like we all have the sunlight of the spirit inside of us. All of us do. We're born with it. If you want to see the sunlight of the spirit, just go look at a baby that's all happy and smiling, right? They haven't been tarnished by this world. They're just completely, absolutely just happy, joyous, and free. And you can see the sparkle in their eyes. You can see God, right? They have the sunlight of the spirit. It's like for me when I'm around a baby, I can't help but smile. They just make me smile, right? They have the sunlight of the spirit, and it just brings joy to my heart. And we all have that when we're born, and then as we grow, and we start developing our emotions and um, being tarnished by this world, and depending on how we're raised, or when we go to school with other people, and we, start doing things that we shouldn't be doing, anyways, we get tarnished, and we start accumulating stuff, and we start holding on to resentments and all this stuff, and slowly over the course of time it starts dulling the sunlight of the spirit that shines within us, right? And it's at some point, at least for me, you mix alcoholism and drug addiction with that, and it's like completely eclipsed, and the sunlight of the spirit ain't shining, and that's why, um what is that quote? The I love quotes, by the way. uh the eyes are the window to the soul, right? You can tell a lot about a person by their eyes, and when a person is defeated internally, there's like no life in their eyes whatsoever. You just it's like almost like your eyes turn black, right? Like there's no substance there, right? And so kind of what the process for me of getting sober What it did is when I did this work on myself and I did this inventory, right, and I started talking about the things that were bothering me, slowly, it started chinking away, all this negativity and stuff that is was around the sunlight of the spirit, and once I hit my stride and found the pep in my step again, you could start to see a sparkle in my eyes, right? The sunlight of the spirit started to shine, and honestly feel like that's what I'm still trying to do. I'm trying to get back to that little baby that I was at one time, when I was just happy as can be and nothing, not a care or a worry in the world, But that requires a lot of work, So, and I've done a lot of work on myself, and I'm grateful that I have. They have this term that you'll hear sometimes, like grateful alcoholic, and I used to hate that. What the? What are you talking about? How can you be a grateful alcoholic? That's crazy. You know, the reason people say that is because if it wasn't for alcoholism and addiction, I never would have hit bottom. I never would have been forced to look at myself and do this work on myself, which in turn actually is something that I tapped into, which enabled me to find a spirituality and this process, which helps me become a better man. So in that regard, I definitely am grateful. Right, I'm grateful that I tapped into this and that I have tools now, and there is a solution. Um, and it just continues to make me a better man. The more inventories I take of myself, the more work I do on me, the better I become. If we don't illuminate what our problems are, we would never know what we need to work on. For example, if I realize that my pattern is one of dishonesty, then I need to take a look at that and try to start doing the opposite, which would be practicing practicing honesty, right? And it's simple stuff like that. And there's obviously more complicated stuff, but it's also a time where I was able to look at the resentments that I harbored against these situations or these people that played a part in my childhood traumas as a kid, and honestly, just talking about them was huge, and I can't emphasize this enough. Like baseline therapy for all of you out there, that even if you're not an alcoholic or an addict like myself, but we all, regardless of whether you're an alcoholic or an addict or not, we're human beings, right? And human beings suffer from emotions and childhood traumas and things that are uncomfortable or things that bother them, right? And so, baseline therapy for any and everybody out there that is listening to this is talking about those things that are bothering you. And if you can find somebody in your life that you trust, trust enough to be honest with them, I encourage you just to start talking to them about it, or going to a therapist or something. I've never been to a therapist or a psychiatrist that I didn't find helpful in some way. You can learn something from all of them, and it's just like a safe outlet where we can talk about the things that are bothering us. And sometimes, even today, when things are bothering me, it's like I don't even really need a response or an answer from somebody. I just need to talk about it. And sometimes, as soon as I verbalize it and throw it out to the universe, it almost vanishes right then. And it was just that I needed to verbalize it and say it out loud so I could hear it, and be let it be gone. Not everything is that simple. Some things we need to do more work on, but baseline therapy is talking about the things that bother us. And I learned how to do that, and I, even though I didn't want to. I mean, honestly, who likes to talk about that humiliating stuff? Who wants to talk about things that they thought they were going to take to the grave with them? Who wants to talk about their childhood when it's not your typical you know strong family cookie cutter whatever? I come from a broken home, and That's just how it is. And I mean, in today's society, it's pretty normal, but we have these conceptions and these ideas in our mind that we think that we're different or that we're unique in some way, and we're embarrassed to talk about these things, and we shouldn't be. It's we need relief, and if we don't talk about them, you know, I mean, a lot of people have mental illness today too, and suffer from depression, and things like that. And a lot of that has to do with that internal struggle as well. So like I said, I've done a lot of work on myself. I've been around a while. I help a lot of people. And I continue to talk about the things that are bothering me, and I'm pretty open and transparent. I found that to be very helpful, not only to myself, but to other people as well. It gets people to open up to me, and how cool is that? You get like a new sense of freedom, right? And the sunlight of the spirit starts to shine again. So I did that, and my life got good, and I got no complaints today, and I'm at a point in my life, and I could easily just go about my life and not do this podcast or whatever, and I'd be perfectly content. But I also feel like part of me needs to share my knowledge, understanding, and experience with all of you, anybody that's willing to listen, right? Plus, as this podcast moves forwards, there's other things that I want to talk about, things that's going on in this world today, like current events and things that just don't really make sense, or things that I'm kind of curious about, things that I'm unsure of. Um, there's lots of weird stuff happening in the world right now. Ever since social media came around, it's just all this information, this misinformation, this disinformation. There's so much information and artificial intelligence and left versus right and this person versus that person that it is hard to know what is true or factual anymore. Um, it's really chaotic. I've done a lot of research. I went down a lot of rabbit holes. Some people might call me a conspiracy theorist. Okay, I would like to say, I would like to think that I'm more of a person that just tries to step away from the box and look at everything from a different angle and try to take in all the information and then come up with my own opinions on things, whether I believe something is true or not. And I try to explain this to people, and it seems like I can't even have a serious discussion or debate with anybody about anything because everybody takes offense or thinks that, I'm so extreme or whatever, when really I'm not. And I'm just trying to understand uh, someone's point of view or whatever. But so have you ever been around a group of people, or you've listened to somebody and you just, I don't know, is anyone else in tune with their intuition? Let me just ask that, right? Because we all have an intuition, and I can tell you that my intuition has told me things before in the past that I disregarded and I did not listen to. And I would learn later in life, after more pain and misery, that my intuition was trying to save me from that pain or misery, but I didn't listen, right? So I said all that to say that I try to listen to my intuition today, and I feel like I have a pretty good, knowledgeable understanding if I listen to somebody and they're telling me a truth or even a partial truth, or if they're just flat out lying. And that's kind of what I base what I see in today's world on, is collecting a lot of information, doing my own research, not just blindly believing what is fed to me on the news, looking at opposite points of view and discerning with my intuition what is truthful and what is bullshit, right? Anybody kind of do the same thing? I'm very curious, right, on what the actual truth is, because there's a lot of things when you look at it. mm, I don't know about that, right? You really a lot of things to question, and once your eyes start opening to the lies and deceit and the government and just the way everything is like a tangled spider web of stuff, it's hard to ignore. So during the course of the podcast, I'm going to get into different topics around those types of things, and it's just to try to um, start a conversation, get people talking, right? I feel like a lot of the agenda, we'll say agenda, um, behind a lot of this division is because the government or the people that are pulling the strings for the government or whatever you believe, they want to keep us divided, because if we're divided, then we can't come together, unify, and take our country back, right? Um, there's people, it seems like it's all about money and power these days and control. And they really have lost the ability to honestly care and do what's right for the American people. And so that stuff bothers me a lot. And so we'll be talking about some of that stuff on future episodes. I've also had some experience in my life with some paranormal activity. And yeah, I'll be interested to hear if anybody else out there has any experience with paranormal activity. I definitely believe that there's something going on in the spirit world, for sure. I have some instances in my own life that affected not only me but one of my daughters at one point that really opened my eyes to the spirit world, and so I know that to be real. At least in my opinion, it's real, and I will probably get into an episode about that. I also want to talk about schizophrenia and psychosis, because I lived that way for a while when I was on drugs, and that really intrigues me. The inner workings of the mind, and how, you know, one cell or wire up there somewhere gets misfired, and crazy things start happening in your mind. You start believing false realities, talking to yourself, hearing voices, all that is very intriguing and interesting to me on how all that works. And so I definitely would want to talk about that in one of my episodes. Pull up some statistics and research on that. Um, definitely want to talk about fitness and weight loss journey, like I mentioned in episode one. I, you know, I was huge my whole life. I never really exercised much outside of, playing basketball after school and high school. But, the extent of my exercise was drinking uh, can to mouth, um, joint to lip. I really didn't do much exercise. I gained a lot of weight. I always overate. I got really big. Even when I was tweaking, I was like 280 pounds. When I got clean and sober, I ballooned up to three 350, 348. I was big, man. I was really big. And I got inspired, to finally start doing something about it, and started out with just like counting calories and walking on a treadmill at the gym, simple stuff, right? But I managed to lose over 100 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off for the most part. I do fluctuate and go back and forth, but I tried a bunch of different diets, and we can talk about that type of stuff. I wouldn't mind venturing into that on one of these episodes. I would like to talk about conspiracy theories. There's a whole bunch of them out there, and there's a lot to talk about and there's a lot to digest, along with government corruption. So that's probably going to be on one of these episodes. And then the media manipulation. I would like to talk about that for an episode. I feel like the media is controlled and they feed us what they want us to see. And, uh, there's not much room for anything else. They want us believing a certain way, and I don't think that's right. So we'll probably talk about that. We're going to talk about artificial intelligence. All this drone stuff that's going on is really crazy. Um, and why isn't it, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's not being shown on the news, and I don't understand why. You have to go look for it in order to find information. It's just really strange to me. So we'll talk about that too. And like I mentioned before, we're going to continue to talk about, struggles with alcohol and addiction, and maybe even do an episode with some helpful resources for anybody that's out there is struggling or know a family member that's struggling, and I could definitely try to help, you know, push people in the right direction. I've been reading a lot of books lately. I feel like I'm in a weird phase or a growing phase in my life where I'm listening to a lot of books and podcasts. A lot of self help books, some not self help. I'm just like soaking in tons of information right now. So we might talk about some of those books. We might, do a review or just let you guys know what I've been into lately. And I wouldn't mind talking about frequencies and manifestation and healing ourselves. I feel like that's important too, and that's suppressed. I'll give you one of my little rabbit hole theories is that the government wants to keep us sick, because if we are cured, then wouldn't we wouldn't need a doctor, we wouldn't need prescriptions, we wouldn't need pills, which would be less money for big pharma. So they don't want us knowing about uh, remedies that don't cost nothing, and I would love to talk about some of those, like listening to frequency sounds and healing your body with your thoughts and your mind. Believe me, your body listens to everything that you're telling it. So I'll probably talk about that in an episode and more. You know, I'm excited to start doing this. Again, I'm going to call this episode 1.5, just like an add-on to the first episode, and I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts on this one versus episode 1. I think the sound is going to be a lot better. I've been messing with it and playing with it ever since I uploaded episode 1, and I'm kind of irritated. I almost deleted it, but I'm going to leave it up, and I'm going to post this one right as soon as I'm done, and I think it's going to sound a lot better. So you guys out there, let me know if this one sounds better than episode 1, if we're on the right track, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. Please, if you would, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and share. Let people know that I started a new podcast, and I would really appreciate it. It doesn't cost anything. Thank you.